Welcome, Tina Honey, to the show. I'm so happy to have you back again.
Well, thanks, Dr. Mariza. I am so excited to be back. We always have such fun conversations.
Well, I'm excited. The gut, as you and I both know, is the epicenter to so much health. But I want to really connect the dots between gut health and brain health today. And, as the founder of an incredible probiotic line and of Just Thrive, I really want you to spend time with me today and talk about, how can we really support people on a mental level, on a brain health level by supporting our gut health. And so that's what I would love to talk about. Before we do that, I would love for you to just quickly share with us, although I know you've shared before, kind of what was the defining moment or the impetus for you that you said, you know what, I really want to support people at this epicenter, at the gut health level, so that I could really transform health across the board.
Yeah, so I had a really interesting journey. I was an attorney. I still am an attorney, but I was in litigation for many years, and then just trying to find that work-life balance. I have three kids who are now adults, but at the time, I was like, I cannot do this crazy, these crazy hours. And so I ended up going into a family pharmaceutical business, which I thought was fantastic because I'm like, oh wow, now I could like go out and help people like get better and deliver life-saving medications. But after being in that industry for a while, we really started to see a lot of the abuses. My husband and I both were in the industry, and we started to see so many of the abuses going on in the pharmaceutical industry, the overprescribing of drugs. We saw it with our own relatives. There was not a focus on prevention of disease or maintenance of health. It was really just focused on treating symptoms. And we really wanted to get something that was more into maintaining health and preventing disease from happening. And so we started doing a lot of research. We were naturally minded anyway with our own kids. We'd always let them have let them have their fever go a certain amount so that they're, it's your body's antibiotic, let your body, fight its own infection. So we ended up looking into the gut. We started learning more about the gut. And then one of my husband's naturopath had told him, you won't believe this, we have the opportunity to buy these really incredible strains from London University. And he's like, I know more about the gut than probably anybody in this country. And he's like, this is like game changing in the gut health space. And so we were like, let's do it. We did some more research and we just dove in. We put our life savings into the, starting this business and put all of our sweat equity into it as well. And it's been the best thing we ever did because we see how many lives it's changed, and every day. In fact, earlier this morning, I got a text from a customer just going on and on about, how it's helped her with a skin issue she's been having for years. And it's like the testimonials never get old. And it's been the greatest career journey I've ever been on, bar none.
Well, I was just thinking of my own little personal testimonial. Even before I got pregnant, I was on the probiotics and stayed with them throughout my pregnancy and have been on them during my breastfeeding journey. And I just feel so good knowing that I have great gut integrity and that I'm able to really support Kingston because of that. Because I know that so much of what my flora, my microbiome is his. And so that I just want to speak into how grateful I am. And like, there's a deep like trust and knowing that my body is so well taken care of because I have these to lean on every single day.
I think that's the big thing that we've been focusing on has been resilience. We're all faced with offenders to our health all the time, from everything we eat, from the air we're breathing, all that. But the bottom line is we want to build resilience in our body. And so that we're able to once in a while have that glass of wine. So we're able to once in a while have something that we shouldn't be eating, but it's about building that resilience or being exposed to somebody with a cold or whatever it might be. We want to build that resilience within ourselves. And that's what focusing on your microbiome and your gut health really does, is help build that resilience. And exactly when you're talking about what you've done with Kingston, I mean, the mother is passing their microbiome onto the child. That is really the only time a human being is inoculated with their bacteria is through vaginal childbirth, close skin to skin contact breastfeeding. So it is paramount that a pregnant mom is able to pass on a healthy microbiome to their child. So you hit the nail right on the head with that.
Thank you. And thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful. And yeah, I feel that level of resilience as well. Still always, again, I know that, it's multifactual in terms of like eating foods that are going to be healthy and nourishing the gut, and then also supporting the gut microbiome with incredible bacterial strains, spore-based strains. Can you talk a little bit about, because I know that there's still so much confusion around probiotics and what people should take. Should they be in the refrigerator? Like how many gajillion,
Yeah, right. CFUs.
types of CFU should there be? How many strains should there be? And a lot of some of that doesn't matter at
Right,
all
right.
when it comes down to it, because it's more about quality than it is about quantity.
Right, exactly. And spore based are a completely different category of probiotics. So, the majority of probiotics out there are made up of lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. Ours are not. And that was very intentional because we know those strains are very sensitive organisms, meaning that they're so sensitive that they probably would die just by us swallowing them because our body temperature. And then they definitely would die in the stomach acid. The stomach is very acidic. It's meant to be the gastric barrier. And the majority of probiotics on the market are just dying before they ever get to the intestines. And so the spores are a completely different category of probiotics. They are not lactobacillus or bifidobacterium. They are these bacillus spore based probiotic strains. And these strains have this armor like the reason they're called spore based is they have this endospore shell around them. And that endospore shell allows them to be protected when they're taking that journey from swallowing them all the way down to your intestines. And it's not until they hit the intestines that they take their spore shell off. And that's when they go into their live vegetative cell state. So it's a very, very different approach to gut health. And the main difference is their survivability. They arrive in the intestines 100% alive, where the overwhelming majority of probiotics on the market, and this has been tested by independent third party labs, they are dead bacteria that arrive in the intestines. With spore based probiotics, they get there 100% alive. And when they get there, they take this shell off. And that's when they become live bacteria, when they're in the intestines. And then the other difference with spores is not only do they survive the gastric system and get there alive, but they have the ability to stay there for about 21 to 28 days, where they're working through every part of the intestinal tract. So they're getting rid of the pathogenic bacteria, they're helping support your beneficial bacteria. And this is why we're seeing such profound results with the product, because one of the first studies we did was a gut model study. There's only 2 universities in the whole world that do this type of study. And it basically showed that after 2.5 weeks, the spores showed a 30% shift in the microbiome, a 30% favorable shift. I mean, I'm not aware of any other probiotic strains that have a study to that magnitude that we're actually showing that we're making, after 2.5 weeks, making a 30% favorable shift in the gut microbiome. And that, again, it's why we're having such profound results with the product, because it's really getting to the root cause, which is the whole reason we got into the business in the first place, is that we want to get to the root cause of issues and figure out, why do I have this condition? Not put a band-aid on it. You could put a band-aid on it temporarily, but let's get to the root cause. Why do we have high cholesterol? Why do we have an autoimmune disease? Why do we have this? Let's get to the root cause. And 9 times out of 10, it's stemming from a gut imbalance and gut dysbiosis.
I agree. And yeah, I mean, those results always blow my mind every single time I hear them. 30% increase. I mean, that's just mind blowing in just 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because as you and I both know, gosh, we're pretty sure that at least 80% of adults have some level of leaky gut,
Yes.
and things are just going right through this and causing autoimmune conditions, causing metabolic dysfunction, causing cardiovascular disease. And this really directly ties to healing leaky gut.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all about leaky gut. Pretty much all non-communicable diseases, any disease that's out there, really stems from the leakiness of the gut. And we are, like you said, 80% of, they estimate over 80% of the adult population has a leaky gut and doesn't even know it. In fact, we did a study, a double-blind human clinical trial on leaky gut. The University of North Texas conducted the study. They took 100 college students that were not on any medications. These are healthy young kids. They had no symptoms whatsoever. 55% of them had a leaky gut and didn't even know it. And so what does that mean with an older population that's, maybe has some symptoms? I mean, that's why they say at least, 80% of the adult population has a leaky gut and they don't even know it. And it's like that drippiness of the faucet. Basically, leaky gut is exactly what it sounds like. There's little holes in the intestines and toxins seep out from the gut into the bloodstream and cause this inflammatory response. And that, just like that leaky faucet, it's not really causing a problem for a while, it just drips and drips and drips. And then one day it just all goes overboard. And that's exactly what happens. People will say to us all the time, like, my God, I never had allergies before, and now I have allergies. And it's like, well, yeah, it's because you were allowing that leakiness of the gut to continue, and then one day it just overflows, and all of a sudden, all these issues, whether it's autoimmune issues, allergies, anxiety, depression, I mean, you name it. All of these things are stemming from that leakiness in the gut. In fact, there was a study, a profound study that came out in 2017 that showed that LPS driven microbes, like the LPS toxins that seep into your bloodstream, the number one predictor of Alzheimer's. So we know that that leakiness of the gut could go to any of our organs. It could go to our heart, it could go to our liver, it could go to our brain. And it's one of the biggest causes of brain inflammation. It are those LPS toxins leaking into the bloodstream. So it is so paramount to focus on your intestinal lining, that leakiness of the gut, and seal it up.
Hmm, agreed. I want to connect more into the relationship because I know so often people, when they think about gut issues, they're still trying to relate to gut issues like bloating and gas and, just painfulness or diarrhea and constipation. But we know that you may never even have any of that. It may be eczema, it may be rashes or some type of, something happening on the skin, or it could be brain fog, or it could be anxiety, or it could be mood swings. So I'd love to talk a little bit about kind of the role that the gut plays in not only our mood health, but our overall brain health. I know that we kind of tied that leaky gut to potentially a leaky brain, but I'd love for you to speak more into that.
Yeah, so there is a huge connection between the gut and the brain. As you know, the vagus nerve connects from the brainstem all the way down to the gut. And there's, all these fibers going back and forth between the gut and the brain, just sending signals back and forth to each other. And we know this by the fact that we get butterflies in our stomach, for example. We get butterflies in our stomach. We know that's because our brain is sending signals to the gut. And the reverse is true. Our gut, if their gut is in balance, it's going to send signals up to the brain like something's wrong, which could be a trigger for anxiety, depression. We also know that LPS toxins that we talk about, like I had mentioned, seep into the bloodstream and go to the brain and cause this inflammatory response in the brain. So there is a huge connection to the gut and the brain. In fact, there's a reason why psychiatrists have had their hands tied for so many years by, just prescribing the SSRIs and the anti-anxiety meds, is that they're really focusing on the wrong issue. They're focusing on the brain when really the issue is stemming from the gut. 90% of our neurotransmitters are produced in our gut. So 90% of our serotonin is produced in our gut. So, which is, of course, the happy hormone is produced in our gut. GABA is produced in our gut. Dopamine is produced in our gut. GABA, of course, is the calming hormone. All these really important neurotransmitters that really affect our mood are really being produced in the gut. So all these psychiatrists have been focusing on the wrong part of the body. Even though we think it's the brain, it's really the gut that's telling the brain how to react to certain things. And that's really our research has focused on in the last year or so. We know that the probiotic itself, the spore-based probiotic, is helping seal up that leaky gut, the intestinal lining. We've done studies on that. We have the double-blind human clinical trial on leaky gut that showed that just after 30 days of being on the spores that are in Just Thrive, you saw 42% reduction in LPS toxins from seeping into the bloodstream. But even worse than that is the placebo group, the group that didn't get the spores. They saw a 32% increase in LPS toxins, which speaks to that drippy faucet that I mentioned. So every time you're eating, you're causing this inflammatory result. And so now when we're looking at the spores, we know we're stopping that LPS toxins from going into the bloodstream or reducing it dramatically from going into the bloodstream. So we're helping with one aspect of it. But we know that there are other aspects of stress. We know that there's external stressors that we deal with. And that's really what we've been focusing on recently, just because we know that this is a problem. It's a huge problem in our society right now, especially after the pandemic, and especially, what everyone's been dealing with. And we know that that directly affects your immune system. So,
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that too. So we've got, not only do stressors, do we know external stressors affect gut integrity, and hence again talking about that resilience. Not only do we need emotional resilience, goodness knows, but we really
yes.
do need gut integrity resilience as well. And so I know that because you guys have been focusing so much on that, you have just released a new product called Just Calm. I'd love for you to speak into that, because there are a couple different products of yours that we take every single day, and then some we just travel. I know last time we were on the show, I was talking about gluten away, and I want to talk a little bit about that because we're heading to Italy in just a week and a half. And so
Ooh,
we're going to be taking gluten away with us.
exciting, exciting.
We're taking Kingston to Italy.
Oh,
And so, but
lucky boy.
yeah, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about Just Calm, and kind of the gap that you were seeing that you really wanted to support, because it is one thing to have that gut integrity and to ensure that that translates to the rest of the body. But then the other thing I always talk about, it's one thing to protect our gut and eat hormone loving foods and support our metabolic health. But the other most insidious thing out there is this unrelenting stress, whether it's perceived, whether we know it has a profound impact on our gut, on our metabolism, on our sleep, on just on how we feel,
Everything.
everything. Yeah. So talk to
Yeah.
me a little bit about Just Calm, because I just got it in the mail. We've been taking it for a little bit, not too long, but I would love for you to speak into it a little bit more as a kind of more of a comprehensive way to really take care of us.
Like you mentioned, it's a new product that we launched. One of the things that we pride ourselves in is that we will only launch products that are missing and needed in the market. We are not ever going to be a 200 supplement company. We are only looking for products that are really making an impact on society and really missing and not out there. And so this was, obviously, we're focused on gut health because we know how important it is for our overall health. And so what Just Calm is, we actually named it Joot, Joot, like a sub brand of Just Thrive, by Just Calm, because it's so important. We know that this gut health and brain connection is so important that we wanted this to really stand out to our customers. So the Just Calm product is something called a psychobiotic. And a psychobiotic, it's actually a recently coined term, but it's basically the friendly bacteria that's supporting your gut brain axis and helping support your mood and your cognition. So it is a whole new category of probiotics out there. And I think that's what's so exciting. I was just at a show a couple weeks ago, and I had somebody asking me, well, I take this probiotic for this. And I think we're almost entering an age where we're going to be starting to take multiple types of probiotics because we know the gut is so important. My only caution is that you're really focusing on probiotics that are research, that have research behind that particular formulation or that particular strain. Not like, we want to make sure like you have that on that exact strain, because that is so important. But the psychobiotic basically is dealing with these external stressors. So we already talked about the inflammation that's going from the gut to the brain. That is one major cause of brain inflammation. Hopefully we have that covered with the spore-based probiotic that's found in Just Thrive. Now, the other source of the greatest inflammation in our brain is external stressors that we deal with. We deal with getting cut off in traffic, an argument with a loved one, deadlines that are, to-do lists that are way too long,
You
everything that we
never finish.
never finish.
What
Exactly.
mom ever gets to the
Yes.
end of the night and is like, "Oh, I nailed it."
You're right. Exactly. I know. I can't say I've ever done it. In 25 years of being a mom, I don't think I've ever done it. So, but yeah, and we're dealing with these things all the time. And so, and what happens is we experience an external stressor, and the HPA axis gets triggered, and now all of a sudden cortisol is produced, and we know cortisol is so bad for the gut, and it's so bad for us all around. It's so detrimental to our health, and yet people are walking around with elevated cortisol all day, every day. And so what the research that we've been focusing on is this particular Bifido longum 1714 strain. And there have been several studies on this particular strain showing that it actually reduces the ability to like perceive stress. So you don't have that same fight or flight response every time. And it's also able to bring you down from that fight or flight response, which, we've always talked about the fight or flight response is a normal, healthy response when there's a stressor. The problem in this day and age is we are experiencing stressors all the time. And once we get in that fight or flight response, we can't bring ourselves down from it. And that's what the 1714 strain has been shown in studies to do. It to actually reduce the cortisol, actually change our brainwave function. We all are trying to be in that theta wave, brainwave state where we are able to just be in that flow state. And we know the 1714 helps get us more into that theta brainwave state. So really exciting research on the product and really, really exciting results on the product. And again, it's just really important to know that I think the reason that we've had our hands tied all these years is because we've been focusing on the brain and not on the gut. So our new product, Just Calm, has this really important psychobiotic strain called Bifidolongum 1714. And that strain actually helps us reduce our, be able to help handle stressors better, reduce the cortisol, change the brainwave function. We all know those people who, the study that was done on the 1714 strain showed that people who had higher levels of Bifidolongum 1714 strain in their gut had virtually no anxiety or depression. It's amazing. So, and we know those people. Like I know those people who, when I see a fire truck or I hear the sirens from a fire truck, I'm like, oh my God, please don't let that go to somebody's house that I love or I care for, my family. And my one friend's like, oh no, I hear a fire truck or the sirens and I'm like, oh, there's another cat stuck up in the tree. And I'm like, oh my God, why do you have that response? And I'm like right away thinking, oh my gosh, so it is really the way we're wired in our gut, not really the way we're wired in our brain.
Well, it really speaks to the importance. I know that we're still really uncovering the importance of the microbes in the body and the big roles that they play. We're beginning to
Yeah.
understand even more and more. And I feel like this product really speaks to that. Now, Tina Honey, is there a good time to take this? Is it in the morning? Is it before bed? Like, when would you
Yeah.
recommend?
I would recommend starting in the morning with
Okay.
it. It doesn't need to be taken with food. Like our probiotic works better in the presence of food, but this psychobiotic and Just Calm, we would just say to start just start your day off on that like really good brain wave function, and a calmer, start to the day is what we would recommend. There are customers who prefer to take it at night because they say that it helps them sleep. Because of course, if your brainwave, if you're not, if you're handling stress better and able to deal with stressors, of course, it's nice to take it at night too, but we always recommend taking it in the morning.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, because I was like, I know that, kicking off your day, really setting the tone for your biology is one thing, but then also a lot of people have anxiousness and mental chatter at night. And so I was
Right.
just kind of curious when that best time would be. And then I know for the probiotic, at least I take it in the morning. Is that when you would recommend? It's with breakfast, that is.
Yeah, as long as it's with food, the time of day doesn't matter. And like with the psychobiotic and Just Calm, you could take it at any, I mean, there's no bad time to take it. I just would recommend starting your day off like that. But you're absolutely right. At nighttime, people sometimes have that chatter in their head, and it's great to take it at night. But with the probiotic, we know that it works better in the presence of food. The time of day doesn't matter as long as you're taking it with a nice big meal. That's the best time to take it.
Right. And it's one per day.
Yep, one
So
per
you can
day.
just pick a
Super
meal.
easy. Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah,
The other
super
question I
easy.
had, I've just been so curious about, and I've been doing a lot of research on is, when is it appropriate to start probiotics for children?
Yeah. So I would suggest, it all depends on what's going on with the child. I mean, I feel like every child that is born into this world, they're already born and most are born into this sterile environment that's killing off our microbes. And we have to remember our microbes are so good for us. It's only less than 1% of bacteria is bad. That less than 1% gets all the press and gets all the news. Everyone thinks bacteria is bad. So we have this sterile environment that our kids are being born into. And so I always think it's important to start on them right away. But but it's, the delivery mechanism is difficult. So I think, a great age would be around, 2-ish. With our product, you could open the capsules and sprinkle a little on a finger, and you could have the baby suck on your finger. Or if you're nursing, you could spread it on the mom's breast, and you could somehow have the baby start to get some of the strains in them. But this world we're living in is just so offensive to our gut health. I mean, the air we're breathing, the toxins, the cleaning supplies. I mean, and we all try to, I mean, you and I try to eat, super clean. We have clean household products in our house. We're trying to find things that are not endocrine disruptors. And we're really conscious of that, but most people aren't. And most, even myself, I know, I mean, I'm not perfect about this, and we're always faced with things that are offensive to our gut health. So I think that when you see the amount of allergies in kids these days versus I know when I was a child, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I think there is no sooner time than now to start your child on a spore-based probiotic.
Okay, I so appreciate that because I know that parents aren't always sure. That's why I really wanted to address that question of like, but they're seeing issues with their children. They're seeing intolerances to food. And then there is definitely some food out there that I'm like, your kids shouldn't be eating it. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like, I'm just
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
no wonder they responded in, that
Yeah.
way.
The Cheetos aren't exactly what you
Yes,
should be
they're
eating,
not
right?
food.
Right. They're not food.
And then
Yeah,
certain dairy products, there is low quality of everything out there. So it's
that's
something to
right.
be thinking about. But again, I really love the idea, and I think it's becoming so critical more than ever today, is having that resilience, having
Yep.
the brain resilience, having the emotional resilience, but having the gut integrity resilience. And I feel like at this point in our world, in our modern day life, that we really have to be taking something like this, a probiotic, a spore-based probiotic every single day that's well researched, because there's just a lot of offenders out there.
Right. And the other thing to remember when people are worried about, oh, should I give this to my child, is that these are strains that our ancestors consumed on a daily basis. So if we were living back in the day, or if we were living right now in Tanzania in a very, clean environment where our soil was not, it was free of all the chemicals that are out there, we would be eating roots and tubers off the land, and we would be getting these same microbes every single day. So we evolved to have these bacillus strains on a regular basis, on a daily basis. So it's not something so foreign. Maybe the capsule it's in is foreign, but if you want, you could open the capsule and mix it with food. In fact, we did a study that showed that these strains survive heating up to 455 degrees. So you could do so many different things. I used to put it in my son's piping hot oatmeal. These are strains our ancestors were consuming on a daily basis. And I think that's something that's easy to, or a good point to remind parents out there when they're trying, like, oh, should we do it or should we not? But my goodness, these kids are being faced with offenders every single day, more than I was and more than you were. And I just think that we need to be taking care of them. And like you said, just building that resilience.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking, Kingston has this really yummy, nutrient dense smoothie every single morning. And I had been wanting to reach out to you and ask, like, can I open these capsules and put it in a smoothie? Because he loves
Yes.
his smoothies. And it's just such
Uh-huh.
an easy thing to do. Mind you, I've been taking them. And so I'm like, he's getting
Right.
them a little bit through me, but I wanted, I feel like it's the time he has some sensitivities again to things that I feel like people can have sensitivities to, but I want to build that resilience even more. And
Yeah.
so it's been a question I've been meaning to send you a little email about, but
Mhm.
well, here you are. So I
Yeah,
can
here I
ask you
am.
right on
But
the
you can always
spot.
send me an email. So yes, definitely do that. Definitely take care of our kid. I'm so passionate about that because of that reason. I said I knew one kid from kindergarten through the end of high school that had a peanut allergy. One. And now we know there's peanut-free tables. I mean, it's more common than not. Everyone's asking about dietary restrictions. And so I'm really passionate about that. Having 3 kids of my own, I'm super passionate about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's exactly. Yeah. It's really, and gosh, it's so fascinating. And I don't, we're unpacking and unlayering the epigenetic component of all of it. And I got a autoimmune diagnosis, a year before getting pregnant. And so I was like, okay, what can I do to really set my body up for success and my child up for success moving forward? Because I have a feeling that if I've got some of these intolerances to foods that kind of light up that autoimmune condition, is that going to get passed passed down. And so, a lot of us have these types of questions around our family and what's going to happen, what are they passing through, and what foods do any of us really have an intolerance to, just because the food is just not quality. And
Well,
speaking to this, I would love to talk a little bit about gluten away, because it's one of my it's one of my
yes.
favorite products that you
Yes.
make.
I know you love it. So do I. But yeah, no, I think that's super important. I think the other point I wanted to mention too
Mhm.
was that when, we're doing all these really important things for our kids, like doing multivitamins or trying to give them healthy smoothies and doing all these things. But when any of our guts are inflamed to a certain extent, they're just not absorbing the nutrients. And when we have an imbalance in our gut, which unfortunately so many kids nowadays do, and so many adults nowadays too, they're not absorbing the nutrients. So you could be taking the vitamin D and the vitamin C and whatever other multivitamin you're taking, but if your gut is inflamed, it's not absorbing those nutrients. So I cannot stress enough that when you're on a health journey, that you need to start with your gut. There are absolutely other modalities and supplements and things that you need to do to support your gut health. But the number one most important thing to do is to start on taking care of your guts with a spore-based probiotic so that all these other nutrients can be better absorbed. So just wanted to make sure I reminded everybody of that. Like, make sure we could be doing all these other things, but remember, if our gut is inflamed, it's not absorbing those nutrients.
Agreed. Like, you've got to do the foundation.
Yes,
You got
yes.
it. You
So
absolutely have to set up the foundation. And that's
definitely.
literally what this conversation is all about. Like, how do we set up the foundation so that, when you're spending all that money at Whole Foods or wherever you're going,
Yes,
you're
exactly.
actually getting it in your system.
Yes, that's exactly my point. Like, people are spending all this money on organic, which is so important to help support your gut. And, all of these different things that we're trying to do, but our gut needs to be, we need to just make sure it's as healthy as possible to absorb all these things we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, back to the gluten away. Yes, it's definitely one of my favorite products for sure. It's been such a game changer for so many people. We launched that product with the intention to protect people who have celiac, people who have severe gluten intolerances. They can't have gluten. They can't have any gluten. I mean, it is with someone, in the case of someone who's celiac, it could be deadly if they get trace amounts of gluten. So that was really the impetus behind it, was this gluten away product. It was so specially formulated. We actually, Dr. Tom O'Brien helped formulate the product as well. But basically, this product has this enzyme in it called tolerase G that actually breaks down the gluten to non-toxic levels. This is so important for people because we are exposed, people who are trying so hard to be gluten-free, when they're labeled gluten-free, actually have trace amounts of gluten in it. Even our spices, even we're cooking at home, some of our spices actually have gluten in them. So we really have to be super careful about that. So
I love, because you're absolutely right. Inadvertently, whether you're trying to be gluten free or not, there's going to just be the case that gluten's going to be in products and food and at restaurants, and you're not going to have any idea. So if there's a major gluten sensitivity, 100%. Also, and we both, Alex and I, have gluten issues, and we're really mindful for Kingston too, being really mindful around it. But we love having this product, especially if, again, usually Alex, whether he cares he has some gluten issue or not,
yeah.
he's gonna like, can I go get that beer? And I'm like, all right, whatever.
Okay.
You do what you got to do.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna hear about it tomorrow, but that's why we have it. Is that we've got this protective barrier for when someone is deciding. Again, leading back to that resilience. I cannot. That's why I love your probiotics so much, is just having an insurance policy for the gut. We take digestive enzymes every single day. We take the Just Thrive probiotic every single day. We have gluten away in my purse at all times. And so, there's just a lot of ways that we want to support our gut integrity as much as possible. Right now we're in the middle of our summit launch. And so we're eating now, mind you, we're so blessed, living in Leucadia, California. There's a little restaurant called Nectarine Grove, and they're grain free, so I
Oh,
feel pretty good.
yes.
Like, I get
Yeah.
grain-free bread for Kingston. They make it literally in their facility. It's all gluten-free, grain-free. And so I ran and got the boys some lunch today, and I felt really good about it. We normally don't eat out as much as we are eating out this week, but this week,
Hmm.
we're just slammed, you
Yeah.
know. And so But yeah, I mean, there's going to be times where people are either traveling or it's a crazy week. They've got to pick up food, and you just never know what you're going to get. Even we are still mindful, even when we pick a place or we order from a place where we know they are very mindful.
Yep.
Because gosh, man, I mean, if you start to really pay attention to your body, whether you are tired, whether your brain is just like not firing on all cylinders, your gut is having some issues, you notice a little bit like that little eczema spot that just starts to come back,
Hmm.
whatever that is, like that's your gut telling you we need to
Yep.
do something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the thing is that people associate gluten intolerance like that, if you shouldn't eat gluten if you have a gluten intolerance. Really, everybody has a gluten intolerance because we know that gluten is actually causing that permeability or the impermeability of your gut lining. So it's actually weakening that intestinal cell wall that is so important for us to keep really strong. So everyone really should not be eating gluten because it's literally destroying our gut lining. And yet our gut lining is so protective of so much of our health. So I love that you keep in your purse. I do the exact same thing. I've never had any gluten issues as far as eating, I don't have gluten issues, but I know I don't want to eat gluten because I know it's not protective of my gut lining. I do all these things to protect my gut lining. So, but I love having the gluten away in my purse, take it, right before a meal, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, especially when you're eating out and you don't really know, even if it's gluten-free, it may not be gluten-free. So, and again, you're right, like it was never intended to be something that people take when they're going to have pizza, but if you're going to have pizza, I
I
mean,
mean,
anyway,
better
you may
have
as
it.
well, yeah, may
Yeah,
as well
I
have
mean,
it.
even if it's the gluten-free pizza,
Yeah,
you know
exactly. Absolutely. Especially, yes, exactly. Because if it's the gluten-free pizza, chances are you're doing it because you have an intolerance to begin
Right,
with.
exactly. And it was made in the same place as there's gluten pizza. So it's just something to be mindful of.
Yep.
Again, I mean, this conversation, I think, as people listening to this conversation right now, I know you're thinking potentially like, oh gosh, I got to arm up. And it's true, you do. I mean,
Yep.
I wish I could say it was any different. We were traveling and Kingston has a dairy intolerance from the get, and we're really mindful. And I ended up, we were out in Utah and we went out to dinner, and I accidentally got exposed to something. It just must have been like a really not good quality, whatever it was. And it
Hmm.
showed up on his skin immediately. And so I'm not gonna lie, Tina, I was doubling up on the probiotics. I was like, let me
Yeah.
fix this
Oh,
real
yeah. I
fast.
do that all the time. Yeah. I mean, I do it all the time. Yeah.
And it just blows my mind. I didn't personally notice anything, but I know that I have a dairy intolerance too. It's a little bit more like stress. It's a little bit more insidious. Like there's
Yeah.
inflammation in the system, but it's not like blowing up on me.
Right.
But man, within 12 hours, I will see it on my son. I will see
Wow.
it, and it just really speaks to how critical it is to have that integrity. And again, this is what I take probiotics, but I just knew whatever it was just sneaky source of something that just was
Hmm.
really low quality. And it just reminded me of like, okay, like how diligent we really need to be about our
Yeah.
gut health, and about our children's gut health. I remember my grandmother telling me, I'm walking into the age of ear infections. And I was like, no, I'm not.
Yeah. No, I'm not.
No, I'm
Exactly.
not.
I'm way ahead of that. Right. Exactly.
I was like, no, he's not going to have ear infections.
No, no way. I know. And the funny thing is my son had a lot of ear infections. This is before we were ever, exposed to these spore-based probiotics, but he had a lot of ear infections. And I remember my mom and my mother-in-law both called me and said, we saw something on the news that talked about taking a multivitamin and that could help. And, and I started giving him a multivitamin and I swear it stopped. And I don't know if it was coincidence, his age, he grew out of it. I don't know. But the bottom line is when you focus on his health, there was something that maybe he was missing, who knows?
Mhm.
But certainly his gut needs to be, and he had been on antibiotics as a child. This is before he had some issues that he needed to be on them. And it was like, oh my gosh, I mean, I can't believe I put him, if I knew then what I know now, I never would have done that. But, you got to do what you got to do at the time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're learning more and more and more. And, one of the things I've learned over the years is that if has been no exposure, like one of those first times of exposure can just, the body's like, the immune system, it's like, I
Yeah.
know viruses, I know bacteria, I know mold and parasites. This is what I
Yep.
know. You
Exactly.
throw a foreign object into the system and I'm like high alert.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, and the more they're exposed to it, the more resilient they become too. So it's exactly. No, I couldn't agree with you more.
Mm. Tina, honey, oh, this has been such just a powerful conversation. I know that there's so many mamas listening to this as well, thinking about even their teenage girls, when's the appropriate time. And I feel like we really dialed that in to like even as early as two, pay attention to your children's symptoms, pay attention to your symptoms. But at the end of the day, I think that the number one core message is here is just set yourself up for success out the gate. And in order and to do that, you came on with a little discount gift. I'm so excited. 15% off the site with the code Mariza 15, and I will have it in the show notes because I want you guys to go get at
Yeah.
least. And these are the things I want you to get at least.
Yes.
I want you to get I want you to get the probiotic. I want you to go get gluten away because let's be honest, you need it. I want you to get the Just Calm, but you have incredible immune system products as well because at the end of the day, we know it's the immune system that is running the show. But
Yeah.
I feel like those are the three non-negotiables for my audience.
Yes, no, I agree. And I'm glad you brought up the teenage girls thing because when we launched this product, my daughters were teenagers and they had all kinds of skin issues going on, a typical teenager. And I'm like, just try this. And they're like, no, no, and then they finally did it. And now they're like, I mean, now, they're in their 20s and they're like, they don't go a day without it. So they saw the difference that it made on their skin. And, when you're a typical teenager, we all know they're dealing with all the hormone imbalances and the skin issues. So it worked. I mean, it was amazing for them. And so just remember that. But yes, definitely. I always say foundational, the probiotic that you start with. And then, of course, because we're dealing in the world that we're living in with all the stressors, the Just Calm is such a game changer. It has quickly become, I mean, our probiotic has been our flagship product for many years, but Just Calm has quickly become our number two best-selling product because it's such a relevant product and a relevant topic right now. And it's helping so many people. I mean, those are the testimonials that really get me going, just people who have dealt with mood disorders for so many years and kids who have dealt with them that have seen some incredible results has been really amazing. So I definitely would, and then of course the gluten away. We just got to stay away from gluten and try to protect our gut with that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Tina, honey, it is always a pleasure talking all things gut health. Today, mental health, gut health for our children, really setting up that legacy. But I just love you guys are doing, I mean, you guys are making such massive transformations. And I cannot tell you how blessed we are in our family to have you guys creating these incredible products. Like again, I just feel there's something to be said of just like trusting, like you just knowing you are taken care of on a, not only a microbiome level, but an entire cellular level.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Dr. Marisa. I really appreciate that testimony. I really appreciate that. Never gets old.
Thanks, Annie.